Who doesn't want to go fast? It's 2024, almost 2025, and we've all got a cell phone in our pocket. We've all got social media. We've all got all of these different options for content to consume. There's a million podcasts that you're listening to. There's movies. There's albums that you want to listen to, but you can't just sit down and listen to it, so you put it on in the car while you're going somewhere else. You've got a backlog of games, an infinite backlog of games, combined with games that you want to replay from your childhood because you enjoyed them oh so much. And on top of all of that, you want to develop a video game. You want to learn new skills. You want to do all of the things that you are capable of, and you're excited to see how good you can become at all of these different skills. Of course you want to go fast. I want to go fast. I want to get it all done, but we can't always get away with going fast, and playing Sonic the Hedgehog kind of drives that point home for me. This is a game that is supposedly about going fast, but is often about just running into a brick wall because you're trying too hard to be speedy about things. This is Game, Develop, Repeat, and I'm your host, Chris. Let's start talking about Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog is a bizarre series, and I think there's not really anybody who's going to disagree with that. It's a strange series of games with a very weird history. I remember playing Sonic as a child. I remember going through the Green Hill Zone. I remember the panic of underwater stuff and trying to get to your air bubbles. I remember all of these distinct things. And then the later games where you start having Shadow and you start having a little bit more of the whole posse. And even recent things like, I'm not going to get the exact name of this game, but the Sonic Murder Mystery Party, Who Killed Sonic the Hedgehog, it might be called, which I think you can play for free on Steam and is apparently kind of good. It's got a weird history, this series of games, but let's just focus in on the early stuff. This may be different from the Sonic that you know, depending on what generation you're from. I have a feeling a large portion of my audience is familiar with like Sonic 1, 2, and 3, and then the and Knuckles stuff. Maybe a little bit of the 3D stuff. Maybe just the tiniest bit of the 3D stuff before it really went off the rails. What is Sonic Adventure Battle 2? I think is the one that I have a positive recollection of. So let's go back to Sonic 1, 2, and 3. There's this feeling of going fast. There's this beautiful artwork, and yet there's no argument against how beautiful the Sonic pixel art is. It's nice. It's a good look. There's charming animations. You've got these incredible moments of Sonic tapping his foot at you whenever you're not moving around on the screen. You've got just nice, juicy animations, the way that the spin dash winds up and releases, all of these different little details that really add to it. And it makes you feel like you're going fast. And don't even get me started on the music, but if you really pay attention to Sonic, you're not really going that fast as a player. I feel like maybe I'm just bad at Sonic. In fact, I am. But I'm always running into walls. I'm always trying to get enough speed to go up this ramp, to go down this ramp. I'm always trying to get the right angle. And there's a little bit of exploration going on. It's not really strictly, let's go quickly. It's more of a, let's see how quickly we can go, and then go, oh, I have to speed up here. I have to do this, that, the other. Let's explore a little bit. Let's try to find these secrets. But everything does have a certain flow to it, which is nice. This is a game where I fell into pits so many times that I stopped playing the platformer genre for decades. I've mentioned this before, I believe. I avoided the genre entirely because I was so traumatized. I'm being dramatic here. So traumatized by Sonic as a child that I was like, I can't play these games anymore. I'm just going to keep dying. And it has that horrific, like, kind of boing sound effect when you die. Or like you get hit by something and you see your rings fly absolutely everywhere and you have to panic to try to gather your rings. There's also a timer involved in Sonic, and I hate timers. Not as much these days, but I remember playing Final Fantasy VIII, and there's a timer for going through Ifrit's cave, and I was like, I'm setting it to the maximum time always because I can't run out of time because I want space to do things. Remember how I opened by saying that of course you want to go fast, everybody wants to go fast, blah, 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 blah. Maybe that's not true for you. Maybe that's not true for me because I hate timers so much. Maybe at my core, I'd like to go slowly. Maybe at my core, I want to savor every little moment, and I just feel like I have to go fast. Otherwise, I'm not going to experience all of these different things. And I think this is what people talk about when they say FOMO, fear of missing out. It's such a broad term that I don't even understand it. You know what I mean? You reach this point with the internet where everybody is saying a term so frequently that it loses all meaning. It's like if you just repeat any word to yourself over and over and over for 10 minutes straight, it's not going to sound like a word anymore. I don't know what FOMO means. I hear it so much. I suspect everybody has a different definition and understanding of it because it's just such a common, weird little word. But maybe, once again, that might just be me. This feeling of trying to get to everything, it's a problem. It really gets in the way. And one of the good things about Sonic is that you're just playing Sonic. You can go fast, sure, and you can just focus on the world around you. You can figure out how to go fast, and you can figure out where the little secrets are. And you can work your way through and collect all the Chaos Emeralds and all of this good stuff. Because it's just one thing that you're focused on. Now let's look at game development a little bit. I'm tempted to say that we should all go slowly. I'm tempted to say, let's resist this urge to rush forward and instead take a moment and notice everything around us. And I would love to believe that that is the solution and the way to move forward and enjoy your game development and get a quality game out and all of this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, there are time constraints, and sometimes you do have to go quickly, and it's not so easy as do I go fast or do I go slow. There's a whole spectrum of speeds, but I don't want to go Sonic fast all of the time when I'm developing, and if I am going Sonic fast, I want to do it in the way that I did when I played Sonic. Feels like I'm going fast. I learn something. I hit a wall. I figure out how to get through the wall. I go back and I go, okay, now I can go through that quickly. And then I go through another chunk and I figure out the same thing. And I go, okay, this is how I move forward quickly. And I keep learning as I'm going. And then if I ever have to go through that level again, I'm a lot quicker with it. I don't want to do it in the way that I sometimes do, where I hit a wall and then I hit a different wall and a different entire thing and don't focus on the wall that I just hit. If that makes sense. I'm going so fast that I'm pivoting from task to task to task, and I'm not just playing the one game. Game development, you can do this thing where you say, okay, code is tough, I'm going to work on art. Art is tough, I'm going to work on music. Music is tough, I'm going to work on code. Which I think is fine to some extent, but I do fear that sometimes I just bounce from thing to thing. Luckily, I haven't been doing this lately. I felt a little guilty diving deep into work on artwork because there's a bunch of stuff I need to do with programming, but I've allowed myself to just go in on the artwork stuff. And it's paid off. I've made progress that I'm very proud of and happy with in the field of artwork. It's a bit deranged, it's a bit absurd, but I'm making progress with my pixel art, and I'm genuinely getting better at being an artist because I allowed myself to focus in on this thing. And when I have that feeling of, oh, I should really be working on the programming. Oh, I should really bounce back to the programming. I'm letting myself go, no, we're doing a lot with art right now. Let's just keep doing some stuff with art. I'm letting myself be slow in the sense that I am focused on just this level, focused on just this element of the game, making this part good. But I'm still trying to go fast. I'm still going, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep getting stuff done. And I think the metaphor that I'm going with internally here is Sonic, playing through a level of Sonic is focusing on a specific thing in your game development. And then you finish that thing, You go to the next thing. Maybe you're still in the same zone. Maybe you're still in Green Hill Zone and you're doing acts 1, 2, and 3, all Green Hill Zone. That's you focusing on coding 1, 2, and 3. Okay, you've finished that chunk. You have a basic thing done for your game. Now it's time to go over to art. All right, cool. Here we are. We're in Carnival Zone. We're working on the art. We're locking stuff in. We're getting good with it. We're putting in some good art, connecting the two together. Maybe we revisit Green Hill Zone later. But we're not going 5 minutes on Act 1 of Green Hill Zone, 2 minutes on Act 2 of Carnival Zone, right? Like there's a focus here. And I have this temptation whenever I'm rushing to spread myself so thin. So thin. I think that is one of the biggest dangers of, not to get very specific with this, but one of the biggest dangers of having your phone on you when you are working on your game. Because it can remind you of something else. You can be in the zone and then your phone will ding. You'll see something in Discord. You'll see something here. You'll see some piece of music. It'll remind you of something and you'll go, oh, what if I work on this other thing? And then you'll get a text and you'll go, oh, let me check this text. And you're pivoting, you're ping-ponging all over the place. And boom, you've lost focus. You don't remember what it was that you were working on to begin with. And that can be a real trick. The other element of this is just how long does the entire process take? This is something that I really, really want to put some thought into in my own life. I would like to finish a game in like a year. I'd like to finish a game in like another 2 years. I'd like to have a successful hit game within the next like 3 years. Is that going to happen? No, I don't think so. I don't think that's a feasible strategy. I think what I need to do is I need to play the real long game. And this is something I go in and out of emphasizing for myself, but I want to remind myself once again and remind you of the fact that your game does not have to be released tomorrow. It's okay. You can take the time to make a good game. You can look at the game. You can learn along the way. You can revise things. If you've got a day job, this is the joy of a day job. You can play the long game. That doesn't mean ignore your game. That doesn't mean spend 2 hours a week on your game, unless that's all the time that you can put into it or all the time that you're willing to put into it or want to put into it. It does mean you don't have to freak out and rush to the end and just go slamming into a bunch of walls and then finish the level with a low score, right? You don't want to finish the game and look at the game and go, I'm not proud of this game. I'm not happy with this game. This is just something that I made and I have all these regrets and whatever, because you could have spent another 6 months and made it into something you're really proud of, right? We don't have to rush in that way. Are deadlines important? Yeah. But it's a delicate balance. And I just wonder how many of us are out here going a little too hard on the deadline side of things, or the rushing side of things, or the it's so important that I get this done that I'm going to sacrifice the vision of what it actually is. I'm not saying make your game perfect. Don't make your game perfect. Don't make every time that you play a Sonic level a perfect speed run of the level unless that's what you're aiming for, right? It's going to take so long to make a perfect version of the vision of your game. I think it is okay to just have big flaws in your game that you're aware of, but you play the game and you go, no, that's pretty good. That accomplished what I wanted. This is solid. Now we're going to finish it and we can make a better version next time around. We can work on the sequel, whatever. I think that is fine. And I'm struggling to articulate exactly what that feeling is that clarifies the difference between this is good enough and this is not good enough. I think it's going to be different for everybody, but there's this internal feeling when you look at your game, when you look at the thing that you're making, whatever it may be, even if it's just a small subsection of your game, it's just the music, just the art, whatever, you can look at it and you can go, that's the best I'm able to do right now. And you can decide whether or not you're content with that being out in the world. I think oftentimes one of the weirdest pitfalls in art is that you finish something and you go, that's incredible, that's beautiful, I'm so proud of that. And then a week later you look at it and you go, oh, I hate it. It's not good enough. And then you go back and you work on it, and then the same thing happens and it happens again and it happens again. And the pitfall is not actually that. The pitfall is not knowing how to deal with that or how to navigate that. A lot of people do that and then they go, I'm terrible. I'm just terrible. Everything I make is bad. No, your taste is just improving along with your skill. You're noticing mistakes as you go. Every single step of the way you're going, oh, I'm getting a little bit better. And then you're choosing to interpret I'm getting a little bit better as I'm always bad. That's one angle of the pitfall. The other angle is to never let go of improving the thing under the belief that you will reach perfection. Constantly looking at it and going, this can be better, and then improving it and improving it and improving it, and not paying attention to the real end goal, which is to make a great experience. And that is hard to define. That is hard to notice. It's very difficult to see when you are over polishing, when you are doing this thing where you're going, no, this will make it a great experience. I just have to get the lighting on every single one of these things absolutely perfect. Noticing what matters the most is so tricky. And I think those are the things worth taking the time on. And learning to notice what matters is so worth taking the time. And that process of figuring out what matters, figuring out what makes a good game, and getting a feel for it, and just starting to really understand this is good and this is not, at least in your own opinion, in your own sense of what makes a game good, because everybody has a different taste. Getting that sense developed could take years. And that's not even counting all the time that we spent playing video games. Because when we start playing our own game, when we start making our own game, we start ignoring flaws like crazy. We start ignoring every flaw we can because we want to get the thing finished and we're proud of what we did. And it's hard to step back and go, okay, I'm not in a rush. It's okay. And it's okay if the stuff that I made is not good anymore now that I've developed a little bit. Let's sit back. Let's take a look at this game. Let's play it and let's see if it's any good. And then you sit and you play it and you go, it's pretty good. I invite you to notice that feeling and then go, hold on, it's pretty good to me. What's giving me the What's making me say pretty? What's the little tiny thing that's making me go, something's not quite right. Something's a little weird there, because you're giving yourself more slack on that thing. Maybe. But it's worth investigating whether or not you're giving yourself more slack on that. It's worth having somebody else play it and notice whether or not they're just like being polite about like some UI issue or something where you as the game designer are going, oh, that doesn't matter. Everybody understands, but it's not actually polished. I've gone on a bit of a tangent here, but I think this ties back to rushing. There are so many little shortcuts that we take because we go, people are going to understand what I'm getting at. People are going to understand the general idea of the game. You've played games like this before, you get it, but we're not trying to just get them to play the game and kind of feel what we're getting at. We're not trying to go, oh, it's kind of good. No, we're trying to get them really sucked into that game. We're trying to get them to experience it and forget that they are playing a game to some extent. I think that's how I feel. I feel like there's this line that happens in my brain. Let me just speak for myself for a moment rather than making broad statements based on my own experience and no real like understanding of a larger population. Just to speak for myself, I feel a specific sensation when my game is doing kind of good but something is missing. And that specific sensation is vaguely positive. There's a feeling of, oh, this is kind of a good game. And it's so tempting to just take that and say, and we're good. I've done the work. It's kind of a good game. It's kind of enjoyable. And I fear that. And then I also fear the flip side of that, which is noticing that feeling and going, but it's not good enough. So much that I never let myself finish the game. And this is where some level of self-awareness of like your creative process is really, really valuable. And it's also where deadlines can be extremely valuable. You got to know which side of that line you fall towards. I would assume that most of us fall towards this is good enough. And then it feels like it's done when it's not. I think that is the default human nature to say, this is really good and I put in thousands of hours of work on it, so it must be done. I've been working on this for 2-3 years. It must be finished. And then you show it to somebody else and they're like, these buttons kind of feel weird. And you go, they're just not used to it yet. They'll get used to it. No. They won't get used to it. They'll just return the game, right? Or they'll just not play it because they're like, I don't know, the buttons kind of feel weird, so it seemed like the game is probably not that good. There are all sorts of little details that we can ignore as developers, and I think a lot of the time we ignore them just because we're used to them, and we just run right past them because we got to get to the other stuff, which is fair. We have to get to the other stuff. There's a lot of game to be developed, and there's a lot of different elements, and I got to get it done this year. But maybe we can expand our timeline. Maybe the time scale for finishing your game or for getting good at game development can be longer so that you can really sink your teeth in and develop those skills without rushing through anything critical on accident. I've only got one question for you this week, and that is, what is your time scale for your game, for your learning journey? How long can this take you? How comfortable are you with just letting this take 10 years and just working consistently, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, whatever spare time you've got? Can you do that? Is that comfortable for you? Or are you in a situation where you're able to dedicate all of your time and say, I really want to crush this out in like 5 years so that I can start building this other thing and move forward, and so on and so on and so on? Whatever your time scale is, how are you going to manage that? I think that I need my time scale to be more patient. That's really where this episode is coming from. And please excuse me if there were portions of this that were very rambly. I think to some extent I was talking to myself and trying to discourage myself from rushing and encourage myself to take my time. But there are elements of my time scale that I'm trying to rush, and I think it's important that I give myself more space. The most I've gotten done developing a game, when I finished Soot, that was in the wee hours. That was squeezed in between other things. That was the time after work. When I was busier, I got more done on Soot. Now that I have dedicated a lot more of my time to game development, I'm doing a lot less in terms of game development. I'm getting stuff done. I'm learning new skills and I'm getting decent quality out of things, but I kind of miss the way that I was doing it before, where I was really like, I felt crushed in terms of time, not in terms of like being overwhelmed, but I just felt like I was squeezing the time in where I could. And I liked that. I got a lot more done. It was a lot more exciting. It was kind of a thrill. And there can be benefits to that side of things. It can be a nice break from everything else, and it can take the pressure off of the project. You know, I'm doing so much stuff around game development right now that I feel like there's too much pressure on the project. So I'm going to take steps to take pressure off of it so that I can take the time to make a good game. And I can be patient, and I can invest a lot of myself into it and just let the scope be not microscopic, not massive, but just in a nice spot that I'm comfortable with and excited about. And make something good. Make something that's going to last and enjoy the process, because it's going to be a long process one way or another. So I might as well do a version of it that I enjoy, that allows me to make the game that I want to make. That is everything that I have for you all this week. Thank you so much for joining me for this one, for episode 101. I look forward to making another one for you, and feel free to join us on Twitch. I have a Blue Sky now. I don't have a link for it yet. It's Anxious Buddha Games, but I have literally a single post, I think. But I've got that now. We'll see how that goes later. That's about it. That's all I got to say. Thanks so much for joining. Get out there, make some stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.